Hello Wonderland, Kelly here. It is a theme park day today, still in Orlando. Yeah, I come to this particular theme park because they pay my bills and let me in for free and bring me down to Florida every few months, hopefully. The order of the day is to try out a couple of new acquisitions in the manual focus department and maybe some theme park photography tips while we're at it. All right, let's do that. Okay, talk about what we're working with today, but first a little history is required. So when I got my first DSLR in 2005, the Rebel XT 350D, yeah, good camera, 8 megapixels. Those were the days, right? But anyway, I was poor back then, and I couldn't afford modern lenses, at least not many. So I wanted to expand my collection, and I turned to vintage manual focus lenses because you could adapt a lot of those to the Canon EF mount, and now even more to the Canon RF mount. So, but back then there were a few lenses on my list that I wanted, but were still too pricey. Even, you know, used old lenses on eBay still ran for a bit out of my budget. So, kind of decided to pick those up now that I can afford them a little better, and I'm going to try them out today. So, firstly, it's this one. These are both communist lenses, by the way. This is a Jupiter 9 85mm f2, so from Soviet Russia. I haven't tried this one at all yet, really, but looks pretty good. And that, obviously, is a good portrait lens. I'm sorry if you're rocking. Table is not stable. The table is supposed to be stable. Okay, so yeah, there's that one. Give that a try today. And then the other one is this. These are screw mount lenses, M42 mount, so I'm unscrewing. This is the Zeiss, Carl Zeiss Jena Flektogon 35mm f2.4. So from East Germany, when East Germany was a thing. It's very pretty, it's very pretty. When I got this one, the aperture was stuck. So I had to disassemble it a bit and get the aperture working. But now it does. So that's good. I was a little scared there for a moment. Okay, so yeah, I've been shooting with this one this morning already a little bit, and I've shot with it a little bit before, so that's exciting. Gonna try the 85, gonna just roam around the park. I'm here early, but I don't really need to ride too much today. I've ridden my favorite ride already, so yeah, we're just gonna screw this on, roam a bit, and see what we can come up with. Tight. All right, come along. It's crowded here already. Spring break-ish, so, and there's like a cheerleading competition, and I saw some kids in band t-shirts, so yeah, lots of special groups here too. But anyway, it's a cloudy and overcast day, so the lighting is pretty nice and even, flat. The sky is a giant softbox. I like that. It's not making for great scenics with the sky included, of course, because it's not even cloud detail to speak of, no blue sky. Yeah, so there's that. But I'm mostly getting a lot of detail shots anyway, which is kind of the point. If you're at a theme park, I would say theming is about details. This place does very good with details. We've actually got a new park opening down the road a little bit. I went on Friday. No pictures allowed yet because it's not open, which was killing me, because all day I was walking around like, oh, there's a photo, there's a great photo, that's an awesome photo, and I couldn't do it. They don't know what they're doing to me. Yeah, I probably won't get any pictures from that park on this visit, even though I plan to go another time or two. But this park is open and available, so that's where we are. I switched to the 85, and I took a portrait of the train conductor here. Friendly chap. So hopefully that came out okay. And I'm just going to kind of switch back and forth between the two as I wander this park and look for some more details and scenics and whatever else I can find, because that's what I do. Okay. And I'll talk a little bit about the details of each lens as I go too. So that's the plan. Onward. right. Been shooting a lot. Just rode some wet rides, so I'm a bit moist. Thought I'd talk about the details on these lenses real quick. So, start with the Flektogon, which is very nice. I'm liking this one a lot. I've been shooting mostly at 2.4 all day, unless I stop down for a landscape or really stop down to drag the shutter. I've been doing a lot of that with the roller coasters and whatnot. But even at f2.4, unless the viewfinder is deceiving me, it's pretty sharp. Modern sharp? Probably not, but good enough for the R5 Mark II, hopefully. We'll find out later. But yeah, so far, really liking the performance on this one. Easy to focus. Can use the magnification in the viewfinder and the focus peaking to really dial it in. Stiff but smooth on the focus ring, so it stays where you set it. The aperture ring is a little bit easier to bump. But yeah, haven't had too much problem with that as long as I check it. And I have to check to make sure the aperture goes where I want it, because like I said, when I got this one, it was a little sticky in the aperture, so sometimes it doesn't quite want to stop all the way down if I'm doing that, but not too difficult to get it there. Minimum focus distance on this, and a really long focus throw on the ring. I'm doing this one-handed, or I would show you that, but minimum focus distance is 0.2 meters. And I tried that. That's about 6 inches, I want to say. And that's about right. I dialed it into minimum focus distance, and I could focus on something about 3 inches in front of the lens. So yeah, that's pretty good. Can do a little macro. I'll try that and see how that comes out. On the other hand, I've got the Jupiter, and I haven't used this one as much. I think I mentioned, yeah, I got a portrait of the conductor by the train. I'll throw it back on to do some more, of course. Got a shot right around the corner here that I want to get of Velocicoaster, which I think this lens will do well for me. Really difficult to turn the aperture on this one. I don't know if it's just this copy or if it's the lens in general, but difficult to dial in the aperture. Minimum focus distance on this is 0.8 meters, which is a good 3 feet or so. And I could tell that. So you're not doing macro with this lens, but that, yeah. Pretty smooth focus turn on it. I'll get the hang of the aperture, hopefully, and we'll do some more with this. Yeah, having a good day so far, though. Liking playing with these. Get that shot of Velocicoaster around the corner. I'm getting hungry. I'll find somewhere to eat. Theme park food, yay. Yeah, and then I'll probably head to the other park. I may as well get my steps in and see how that goes. I don't know what that horn is. Okay, anyway, on we go. And actually, if I can do this one-handed, let me show you a little bit more of the aperture on these. So this is the Flektogon, obviously. That's f/16 that it's set to, if you can see down in there. This one is clicked, the aperture ring, and it's mostly half-step increments, except for the very wide range. So you've got 2.4, that's wide open. One click to 2.8, probably 3.2 and 4. And then after that, it's a half, there's a half step between each stop. So yeah, and it goes to f/22 as a minimum. On the Jupiter over here, this is what I'm talking about. It's got two, it's almost got two aperture rings. So this outer one and then this one. The outer one, closest to the end, seems to set where you see the numbers there. So, and this is only one stop between most of these points. That kind of sets where the aperture is going to max out, I guess I would say. And then the other ring actually closes the aperture. So if I set this to f/16, I don't know if you can see down in there, but the other ring very smoothly opens and closes the aperture. So you can kind of set this aperture to anything in between any of the stops as well. Just this outer dial sets where it's going to end up if you turn it all the way to the stop. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm still making sense of it myself. And then when you want to adjust the aperture, you've kind of got to release that inner ring, and then you can turn the outside one and then dial it down to whatever that setting is. Little strange, little strange. I get the hang of it. so this is the shot for Velocicoaster that I'm talking about. This section of the track right here is towards the end. It's the barrel roll, heartline roll, I like to call it. Here it comes. It's a lot of fun. And it's beautiful. All right, so yeah, from this position though, you can kind of look right down the barrel of the barrel roll and get some shots there. I've done that with the 70-200 before, and that works pretty well. I don't know if the 85 is quite long enough, but we gave it a try. See if any of those came out. Now, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go find me some food somewhere. There's another land of the park I'll go through, and then maybe head to the other park. Good times. Got hot and sunny there for a little bit. Still kind of is, which is weird because there's a storm system moving in shortly, in a few hours, with the potential for severe weather, so I figured it'd stay cloudy all day. So you might ask, what's the point of using these old lenses, right? For both of these, I have the modern equivalent. So I have the 35mm RF f1.8, which is stabilized and autofocus, so why would I want to use the Flektogon? And I have the 85 f2 macro, which is sharper and autofocus and stabilized, and does macro, unlike the Jupiter. And, you know, part of it's just the experience, the fun, the vintage feel, I guess, of using an old analog, non-electronic lens. So that's appealing. Price is certainly a factor. If you're starting out like I was back in the day and looking for cheaper options than the manual lenses, then these are options for you. But really, to me, it's about the character of the lenses. And hopefully what I'm taking is showing some of that. I'm not familiar enough with these lenses yet to know their character, but that's why we're here. But yeah, hopefully they give something just a little more feel-y than the modern RF sharp as a tack options. So that's what I'm hoping to show. And again, just to provide some more options for things to play with. So I love that. Okay. Gonna wander around just a little more, I think. I'm getting beat and this place is packed, so I'll be heading out shortly. But I'm in the New York area of the Studios Park, and it's usually an area that I find some good little scenics and details, so I'll do that. And we'll go from there. One other quick thought about why to use these lenses. So with modern cameras being as good as they are, I still think there's something to be said for making things a little more difficult occasionally, whether that's limiting yourself to just one lens or one focal length. Using these today, I can tell you, I've had to really think a lot more about composition and about my settings, what aperture to dial in, how I can get the shutter speed that I'm looking for, you know, a combination of settings. And a lot of that applies using modern lenses too, but still, using these and having to dial in focus as well
It just adds that little bit of extra, not difficulty so much, but challenge, certainly. Something to consider.
Future Kelly cutting in here. Sorry, it's a little dark in here. I need better lighting. Anyway, now that I'm back from Florida and I've had a chance to actually edit and look at the images that I was taking on this video, thought I would bring it over to the computer and we can take a closer look at some of these images from these two lenses. So I'm going to start here. This was early in the morning when I was heading into the park, just a little scenic. But yeah, this was with the 35mm Flektogon. And you can see sharpness is pretty decent at 100%. This was at 1/5 of a second, actually. Fairly handheld. I was probably braced on a railing, but you know, for being an unstabilized lens, not bad at all. Yeah, so that's pretty decent. I was overall really happy with what I was getting from the 35mm. This again is the Flektogon 35, and I missed focus on this one a little bit. This is also at a 1/6 of a second handheld, so I'm sure that was a factor, but so you can really see softness here. But when you zoom out and at social media size, this looks pretty good. So yeah, this was one I was pleased with. Further in the queue for this roller coaster, which is Velocicoaster themed, Velociraptor themed. This guy, also the 35. Most of these are going to be the 35 because that was just a really useful focal length for the day. But yeah, this one's pretty sharp. I like it. 1/13 of a second. Not too bad at all. Here, I actually did switch to the 85mm Jupiter 9. Fairly wide open. So this lens I found wide open, not real sharp, and a lot of fringing. So I took some fringing out of this actually in Lightroom. Sharpness isn't terrible though, and the bokeh I think looks pretty good. So fairly pleased with that. Still with the 85, I did my portrait of the train conductor guy. And again, pretty soft if you look in here. I'm sure I stopped these down just a little bit from maybe 2 to 2.5, f2 being wide open. So some detail, it's not bad. For a portrait, I kind of like that. You want a little bit of softness on a portrait, I think. A little bit more towards the macro side of the 35mm Flektogon. So here I was really pleased with the sharpness. This is 1/250th of a second. And this looks modern sharp to me, pretty much. Yeah, pretty pleased with that. Here is where I was doing the barrel roll, or heartline roll of Velocicoaster, and this was with the 85. 1/20th of a second to get motion blur. So here I would have been stopped down probably to f16, which is as stopped down as that lens gets. So at f16, you're introducing a little bit of diffraction, I want to say, softness. So looks reasonably sharp to me, especially zoomed out. You got your motion blur going on here, but the rest is pretty sharp. So yeah, that one I was fairly pleased with. Nice colors. Brought that out in post, I'm sure. This again is the 85, so you can see, and I wouldn't have stopped this down too much. This might be like f4. So still got a little bit of fringing, not too bad. Sharpness is decent. Could bring out this texture a little more probably. But here I really was interested in the bokeh, since it's a little more highlights back there. And that looks pretty decent. With that 15 blade aperture, you get really circular circles of confusion. So the bokeh ends up looking pretty circular, pretty nice. Back to the Flektogon 35mm. So here I feel like I missed focus just a little bit. It's 1/1000th of a second, so motion blur shouldn't be an issue, but I feel like I'm focused right around this brick rather than the signs. But still, again, zoomed out, looks pretty good. Here, I feel like I got focus a bit better, so the detail here in the walls and the door, I think that looks real good. No complaints about that one. And then here, again, the New York section of the park.
real good with the 35. And then I realized I didn't really get to show the bokeh too much other than this one here maybe. So the other day, spring is springing around here, so I went in the backyard to get some macro. And I also wanted to look at the macro a little bit more. Yeah, so this is with the Flektogon 35mm, wide open at 2.4. So you can see sharpness where it is sharp is pretty good. And what I did for these was set the lens to minimum focus distance and then kind of move myself and the camera in and out to get focus. So yeah, that's about as macro as it gets for that lens. And the background blur I find really pleasing on this. That's not bad at all. Same lens, stopped down a little bit, so this is probably around f5.6-ish. Sharpness, you get a little more depth of field, of course. Looks pretty good. Background is starting to get a little less bokeh-licious, if you will, but not bad. And this, I feel like here I've switched to the 85mm, so this is wide open. Minimum focus distance on that one is a lot longer, 0.8 meters, so you're not getting anywhere near as macro-ish. Yeah, definitely this is the 85. It's not very sharp, and this would be wide open. So yeah, where I am focused, it's still a little fuzzy, but the bokeh looks good. The 85 stopped down a bit, so this is probably around, again, f5.6 or so. Good sharpness. It does sharpen up when you stop it down, but you lose the nice bokeh. And this is probably about f8 on that lens, so let that sharpen up. Yep, so reasonably sharp. But again, you lose the bokeh a little bit. So overall, my conclusion, my final judgment on these lenses, the Flektogon, this one is excellent. Definitely deserves its reputation. Like I said, that was one that I saw recommended a lot back when I was starting out and snapping up some manual lenses, but it was a little too pricey because it has such a good reputation. Does deserve it, I think. That's an excellent lens. The Jupiter, might have to play with it a little bit more. Definitely not sharp, and I don't know how much variation there is copy to copy. Again, this is Soviet era Russian lens, so Ukrainian actually, I believe. So yeah, there could have been quality control issues, but not very sharp wide open, which is probably to be expected, and does sharpen up, but still not, I wouldn't call it modern sharp. So that one I'll have to play with some more. But as a portrait lens where you want a bit of softness at times, might be good for that. So yep, there we go. That's my final word. Get the Flektogon, consider the Jupiter. Okay, back to old me to wrap it up.
Alrighty, heading back to the hotel. I'm a bit wiped. Got a lot of sun the last few days, I'm feeling it. So I am gonna relax, I think, for a while. Hope this video was interesting, educational, informative, stimulating, etc. Like and subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. Still in Florida. Next video will probably be the drive back if I figure out where I want to stop along the way. So look forward to that. And in the meantime, be good to yourself. Take care of each other. Don't forget to be awesome. Get out and wander. Later.